How would you feel if everything you knew about the world was wrong? What if behind our democratically elected leaders was an elite society, a secret society that had been running the affairs of the planet for hundreds, possibly thousands of years? It is a common belief that the pursuit and control of money is the key to power. We need look no further than the back of a dollar bill, a symbol of the wealth of the world's only superpower, to see how influential a secretive group such as the Freemasons actually are. On the back of this note, which passes through the hands of hundreds of millions of people every day, you will find the American seal, a pyramid with an eye, an ancient symbol of Freemasonry. And if you overlay this symbol with another ancient Masonic symbol, a six-pointed star, it points to the letters M-A-S-O-N, Mason. At least 13 presidents are known to have been Freemasons, but some accuse them of all belonging to the ultimate and oldest secret society, the Illuminati. But who are they? Clearly secrecy was a contentious issue, so we decided to start with someone who would happily tell us what he thought of it all. In all our time of research, one name continually came up. David Icke is considered a leading voice in the conspiracy world, and we decided to travel to his home on the Isle of Wight to see what he had to say. Hello there, is that David Icke? Ah, hello there, right, it's Dan Treanor, the guy from Sunderland. Right there, I'm in Ryde now, yeah, we're by the golf course where it says that tree field. This was the first time that we'd spoken to David. Until now, contact had been through email or answer phone messages.
Right, yes, it is.
Aha! The man. Yeah, that's a good question.
Just asking if we can park.
Okay. All right then, man.
All right, man.
Nice to meet you.
All right, go around the corner.
Yeah.
Into the parking space here, and hopefully one of the two visitors will be open.
All right, okay, cheers, man.
People need to know some of the background of what we're dealing with and how they manipulate us, because when people first hear that a few people control the many, the first reaction is, you must be joking, mate. There's 6 billion people on this planet. A few people can't control them all. Of course they can't. But in fact they can, once a certain structure is in place. And this structure is a series of compartmentalized pyramids. It's like Russian dolls, one doll inside a bigger doll, inside a bigger doll, inside a bigger doll. And at the top of that are a few interbreeding families that go way back into the ancient world. In terms of names, you can pick up names like the Rockefellers in America, the Rothschilds, the British royal family are fundamentally part of these bloodlines. The Bush family in America is big time part of this. This is why I was able to predict publicly 3 years before he came to office, illegally albeit, that George W. Bush would be the next president of the United States, because presidents are not elected by ballot. He certainly wasn't. They are selected by blood. It's all about bloodline.
The trouble people would have with this argument is that we live in a democracy, and we can vote in people who we want to do for us.
Okay, let me give you an example. Last election, George Bush and Al Gore were both representatives of the Illuminati, this network of interbreeding families. Maybe it's just me, maybe I'm not very bright, but where's the democratic choice there for the American people? You see...
So how have you linked Gore, and is Gore part of this family bloodline as well?
Of course it is, yeah. Don't ask me, ask Burke's peerage.
We were keen to ask David about the Bilderberg Group, a highly secretive but very influential organisation that meets annually in a secret location amid high security. I asked him if he could shed any light on this group.
The Bilderberg Group is an example of how the Illuminati have organisations which are like cement. They hold together or bring together, apparently, in the public arena, unconnected people and unconnected organizations. So a typical Bilderberg meeting will have financiers, people from NATO, people from the governments of Europe in the various departments. It will have media owners like Conrad Black and people like that. It will have representatives of intelligence agencies and what have you. And so it is a place where apparently unconnected people and organizations can meet, and a common theme can be manipulated and advanced.
We found what David Icke said about the Bilderberg group and its interbreeding family is fascinating, so we took his advice and went to London to speak to Burke's peerage. Now I'm off to see Charles Moseley, who's Director-in-Chief at Burke's peerage, and we're going to see what he has to say about the supposed links between the presidents and the European royal family. All right,
hello there.
Charles, right. Hello.
Come on in. All right, that'll do. Well, one of the most interesting things, and it's common sense if you think about it, is that we all are related. Everybody in this room, you and me and the milkman, you and the postman, both of us and the Queen. We are probably descended from Lucy, this mysterious woman who lived in Africa, whatever it is, 50 million years ago. It's easier in the case of the presidents, the US presidents. For a start, America is not that old a country. As a nation, it's about 200 plus years old. As a country which has been settled predominantly on the eastern seaboard, that's say New England down to the Carolinas, by British people, that's to say from the old British Isles, including Ireland, it's about 350 years old. It's extremely well documented from the point of view of births, deaths, marriages, records, and it is therefore fairly easy to prove links between a lot of the presidents. Something like 16 out of 42 are interrelated, and about 7 or 8 of those 16 descend from British royalty.
One of the things I find really interesting is that you said that every time there's an election, quite often you get a candidate, and the guy that goes on to be president, whoever wins that, does have the most royal ancestors.
Yeah, I have never said that. A person who has said that is a person who I have had some dealings with in the past, who I'm afraid does rather shoot off his mouth about things he's not really very well up in. It's a nice idea that the guy who wins the presidency is the one with more royal blood, but you've only got to look at Bill Clinton and George Bush Sr. in 1992 to see that it simply ain't true. Clinton comes, as far as we know, from poor white trash ancestry. Indeed, he is classic poor white trash man himself. George Bush comes from what in America is about as grand a family as you possibly can, and there is well-documented ancestry for George Bush. Bill Clinton, it's not nearly so easy to pinpoint it, but as far as is known, there is no shred, or drop, I should say, of royal blood in Bill Clinton's veins, though there's plenty of other things. And George Bush is a patrician, but George Bush lost the 1992 election.
Because I actually saw it on the Burke's Peerage website.
Yes, you did.
I saw it associated with your name.
Yes, I know. This is the trouble. It's a complicated business. Burke's Peerage, the right to the term Burke's Peerage is still owned by this rather unsatisfactory character.
Are you going to name him?
Yes, his name is Harold Brooks Baker.
All right.
No, there's nothing to be lost by naming names, naming and shaming.
Okay, so it's true. Some American presidents are related to European royal families. But if you look hard enough, if you research hard enough, you can link anybody to anybody else. I could be related to you. So what exactly does all this mean? Indeed, where did this leave us? We found some truth in the royal bloodline theory, but clearly Charles Moseley didn't think it was true for every presidential candidate or prime minister. We were keen to seek more grounded answers, so we travelled to Bristol to talk to former BBC journalist and Bilderberg expert, Tony Gosling.
My website is bilderberg.org, and I've been going along to quite a few of these very secretive Bilderberg meetings, which are quite eerie. The reason I say that...
Can you just explain who the Bilderberg group are?
Well, they're a group that started in the mid-1950s. They were started by Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands, who was an ex-SS Nazi. And the group meets at least annually for a big conference where they discuss the problems of the world. But the crucial thing about this group is that you've got the people who can really make a difference in the world, the heads of the various different central banks, the boss of the Federal Reserve in the United States, the head of the European Central Bank, the people who control the money of the world.
I mean, presumably you've talked to these people. I mean, do they give any justification or any reasons why they try
They
to
say
keep
it's a
it
private
secret?
meeting. But then if the future of the Western world is private, then I think the public deserve to know.
So you're saying that's like an undemocratic way of...
It's totally undemocratic to have private businesses that are in very great positions of trust without any accountability, getting together and meeting in private and making decisions about our future behind closed doors. I'm afraid that's just not on, and the press needs to be in there.
This got me thinking, were groups like the Bilderberg Group robbing us of our right to self-govern? Was democracy merely a front for secret societies running the world?
A Bilderberg attendee in Britain, and a man who is very much manipulating in awareness, is a guy called Ted Heath, who I actually experienced in a makeup room in Sky Television back in 1989, do some strange things indeed, which I didn't understand at the time, but I sure as heck do now. When I arrived at the studio, I was told to go to the makeup room. I was led there, but left there because the makeup lady wasn't there. And there was one other person in the room, and that was Ted Heath, who'd just been interviewed on the programme and then had come to have the makeup taken off. So I sat in the chair next to him, just two of us, that's all. And of course I know Ted Heath and all that stuff, so never met him before, but I know of him, of course, as Prime Minister. So I turned to him and I said, all right then, nice to meet you. And he never reacted. And I should emphasise, this was 1989, I was into none of this stuff we were talking about at the time. And he turned to me, he never moved his body, just his head, never acknowledged me at any time. And he looked at me, and he started at the top of his head, and once he turned his head to look like that, he never moved his head either once he turned his head. The only thing that moved was his eyes. And his eyes started at the top of my head, and all I can describe it as, I said when I came back afterwards to my family, I said, you'll never believe the experience I've had with Ted Heath tonight. He scanned me, this guy. His eyes went from the top of my head down to my feet, just his eyes moving, like I say, and then back up again, got to the top of my head, and then just turned his head back and looked at the mirror, never said a word. What happened was that all of his eyes, the whites, the colour, and the pupil, they all went black. The whole of both eyes was black. Now, when we look at people, we talk about what? We talk about making eye contact. Now, I'm looking at you, and I'm making a contact somewhere here, right? When his eyes went into this blackness, there was no point where I made eye contact. It was like looking, I can only describe it as looking into two black holes. There was no point where it stopped. And when I suddenly got into this, and this whole reptilian thing was coming into my research, I didn't go looking for it. I suddenly started meeting people that were telling me the same story. I was contacted by a lady who used to be the wife of a guy who was warden of a place called Burnham Beeches in the west of London, not far from Slough, about 25 minutes drive from Chequers, the Prime Minister's country residence. And she said that her husband was a Satanist because they had to be to do the job, because one of their roles was to organise satanic rituals for the elite in Burnham Beeches. And what she told me was that she was out in Burnham Beeches, which is an area of woodland and clearings, one night during this period where she was with her satanic husband there. And she saw a light, and she followed the light. She's going through the bushes, and when she got closer, she saw a ritual going on with people in long gowns. And what amazed her was the man leading the ritual was Ted Heath. This was amazing enough, and as I'm leaving, after having had this chat where she described all this, I'm finishing my cup of tea and I put it down. And I made a joke of it. I just said to her, I'm having some strange experiences recently. I said, I keep meeting people laughing that tell me they keep seeing people turn into reptiles. I made a joke of it, and I turned to go. And as I turned to go, all I could hear was this woman heaving for breath. And I turned around, and she's holding a chest, gasping for breath. And the first thing she said was, "Oh my God, I thought it was only me." And I said, what are you talking about? Because, you know, I hadn't talked about this stuff to anyone before. I was just letting it kind of sizzle away, see where it went. And she said, well, I wasn't going to tell you that because I thought, you know, Ted Heath having a satanic ritual was stretching enough. She said, well, what actually happened was, as I observed this ritual, Heath turned into a reptile and grew by about 2 feet. And this growing into a much taller entity is probably about 95% of these sort of accounts that have given to me around the world have included that.
We went to go and see David Icke yesterday, and he's a very interesting man, has a lot to say about Bilderberg and Freemasons and various other things. I mean, what's your take on him? I mean, did you think he's undermining the kind of stuff you're doing, or do you think he's contributing, or how do you feel?
He's just someone else with a slightly different point of view. You know, he's coming from a slightly different direction, but he's engaged with the similar problem, which is how do we expose the secrecy of the way that decisions are made in the 21st century. A lot of big decisions, a lot of, you know, the biggest decisions in the world are made totally in private. And how do we expose this to the wider public? But he does talk a lot about the lizards, and I'm afraid that's where we part company.
Right. I mean,
although I can understand in a way why he's saying this. I mean, if you've ever seen a picture of Queen Beatrix of the Netherlands slowed down slightly, she really does look like she moves like a lizard.
All right.
But I mean, you can pretty much do that to anybody if you slow them down.
Both Tony Gosling and David Icke state that secretive groups such as the Freemasons are heavily influential in the way modern society is run. Another such group is Skull and Bones, which George W. Bush is currently a member. I asked Tony Gosling about this.
It involves a sort of ritual death in a coffin in order to join the Skull and Bones. And the thing that's a little bit worrying about that is that you've got not only George W. Bush, but you've got his father, the ex-head of the Central Intelligence Agency and ex-president, the other George Bush, and Prescott Bush, his granddad, was also in the Skull and Bones. And it's a very elitist society at the most prestigious of the Ivy League universities in the States. And again, surrounded by complete secrecy. Very little or nothing is known about what goes on at the Skull and Bones Club, apart from some of the rituals that they use have been leaked out. I mean, for example, for Bush to join this group, what he had to do would be to lie down in a coffin, masturbate, and talk about his first sexual experiences and all of his sexual secrets in front of the other members.
Yeah, you see,
now, I think most people would think that was a kind of peculiar thing to do with your friends.
It's very unusual. You see, when I hear that stories like that, I think, you know, how can this be substantiated? How, you know, who is there to witness him doing that?
Well, there's been several break-ins over the years by other students at Yale University who've brought out documents from inside what they call the tomb. It's actually on the campus of Yale University, a mausoleum, which is the headquarters of the Skull and Bones. So, I mean, you know, we can, of course, there is always doubt over whether these things are authentic, but it certainly looks like for several different people to find the same thing, some evidence that this is actually what does take place.
As we left Tony Gosling's office, we considered what we had learnt on our journey through the murky underworld of lizards, conspiracy theories and ancient royal bloodlines. We were certain there was indeed something going on behind the scenes. Members of the World Bank, presidents and prime ministers were and are attending secret meetings. But does this mean that an interbreeding race of shape-shifting lizards are secretly controlling us and manipulating us? Well, perhaps not. But it shows that if we care and choose to do something about it, maybe we could do more about the way our world is run and who runs it.
Days never change and it's 3 years later.